Chelsea, I'm sick of the Nikon fanboys. They've become the absolute worst, and it wasn't always this way.
It definitely wasn't. What's going on?
Hey, I'm just going to read you a couple of recent comments. The slimy salesman, I think he's talking about me, is still mad Nikon won't send him cameras to test like everybody else.
Those are great context clues. I also think he's calling you the slimy salesman.
This one might also be referring to me. Fraud is you, bitch. No, fanboy is you, bitch. I'm sick of the Nikon fanboys. So I'm taking them on.
Oh.
I'm going to read more of their ridiculous comments.
Yeah?
I'm going to tear them down. And you know what else? We're going to dig into the psychology of fanboyism a little bit.
Yeah, I actually, in researching this, got a more sympathetic view of what creates a fanboy, why it happens, and how I feel like I may have a drop of fan person in me. So we're going to go over it. But first we're going to talk about Squarespace. Maybe that's what I fangirl over. Mm-hmm. If you need your own website and you have the attention span of a fruit fly like I do, you can get a Squarespace and make one in minutes. It's very easy. You just need your photos and to drag and drop, and you can set up a store. You can book appointments. You can actually make your business easier to run with Squarespace. And you can try it out for free. Just go to squarespace.com/Chelsea. Use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off if you decide to buy it. Thanks, Squarespace. 10 years with Squarespace.
I'm sorry, I'm really hung up on the fruit fly making a website and what the topic of the website would be.
Fruit. Oh my God, get a hold of yourself.
Fruit. And suddenly I'm dead. Okay, first.
You have a part one to the slide says part one, let's make fun of fanboys.
One of my favorite themes is the fanboy who's like, well, I happen to own all the cameras and the one you said didn't work is actually the very best one.
Okay.
They got to establish themselves as an expert. Okay, this person actually says, before you call me a fanboy, seems like he knows exactly where we're going here. Before you call me a fanboy, I've shot 4 brands during my photography life. And then he goes on to say, I know Nikon's been keeping you away from their events, but you pride yourself in being unbiased. Then please be unbiased. Okay. We will actually respond and break these down and give you evidence to trust us some more at the end of this. But first, more comments to make fun of. I'm fortunate enough to have both the ZF and the X-T5, and I'm seriously considering selling all my Fujifilm gear. You totally missed the mark in this review. Sounds like they have a grudge with Nikon. As if this person preferring one camera over the other is evidence of our feelings. Like, I don't know much about how evidence works, but what is his feelings? How does that control my feelings? I don't know. Okay, a lot of fanboys insist that I'm the one who's upset about stuff, not them.
You seem
It's
upset
me
now.
who's upset, not them.
You actually are pretty fired
Okay,
up right now.
So. Honestly, I'm surprised at your review once again about the Nikon Z6 III. Watching this video just makes me feel like you have beef with Nikon, and it clearly shows in the video. Wow.
Wow.
They mentioned that Nikon doesn't invite them to any events, and maybe that is why they have a grudge. Another common theme is insisting that we're secretly paid.
That'd be sweet.
I think this review is done based on their personal gain rather than genuine and fair evaluation.
Nice.
Only a sponsored video to make Sony look the best and Canon the second best. Sponsored video.
By Sony and Canon sponsored us?
Often. Sometimes they'll even insinuate that we were paid by full frame.
How do I get in on the full frame? Big full frame.
And then another is user error. Well, people will like nitpick something. They'll be like, well, if you went to page 5, menu item 13, and adjusted the value to 2 from 3, I think you'd see that all of your problems would be solved. By the way, RTFM.
But you know what? I like those ones because then we can test it, but people have been right. It's just mostly no, they're not.
Yeah.
Also, we write the reps and stuff, the people who make the cameras.
We'll address these concerns at the
Okay.
end. You can tell when I'm reading a comment because I do the troll comment.
Oh, that's your troll voice.
These people are making fools of themselves. They do everything to force things to go wrong with Nikon.
I am making a fool of myself. It just has nothing to do with Nikon.
And finally, all the fanboys who insist that they're unsubscribing, because that's going to teach us now, right? Oh no, we lost one of our 1.6 million subscribers. Let us never say a negative thing again. Even if a camera fails, I'm not going to address it because I can't stand to lose Billy as a subscriber. I've done a rare thing. I've unsubscribed to this channel. BS again. I'm done. Do better. Bye.
Tony, that was a lot. Was that emotional, or was that like cathartic for you?
Yeah, I am basically, everybody out there is acting as a therapist for me right now, just listening to me vent my feelings.
Okay, we can do that for you. Part 2, history of camera fanboys. Oh, you're getting historical about it now.
I mean, will they write textbooks based on this?
Probably.
Possibly. Will the History Channel do a special? That's actually extremely likely. Okay, Nikon wasn't always the biggest fanboy. Like, when we first started, it was actually Sony had the worst, most angry fanboys. Yeah. And do you remember who the leader was? I'll give you a hint. He made little light modifiers.
Oh, Gary Fong.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we were shooting Canon at the time, and Gary had a falling out with Canon, and just started.
You can't read his mind.
No, I read his autobiography, and he described the falling out that he had. But he started just attacking us and making video attacks of us, and that in turn like inspired the Sony fanboys, who just started attacking us, mostly because of Sony's, at the time, appalling autofocus compared to Canon.
When they first started, they had terrible autofocus.
But Sony got better and our reviews got more positive and we didn't hear about them so much. Then I think Pentax had the absolute worst fanboys.
Yeah. Did someone make a video called Attack of the Pentaxians? Was
that
us?
Was me or us together, yeah.
Oh.
You're right. But in sequence, we had the Micro Four Thirds people got super mad. The Fuji people got really mad.
Oh yeah, Micro Four Thirds was a big one. Oh yeah.
But you don't hear about Pentax or Micro Four Thirds or Fuji anymore. But now it's the era of the angry Nikon fanboys.
So it shifted. I feel like I know why that happened.
Why do you think it happened?
Well, because Sony, they were the underdog at first because they were kind of new to the mirrorless digital cameras, and people were calling them cheap toys, but they were still expensive. So people were investing in Sony and then seeing that the reviews were calling out flaws. So they're passionate about Sony. But now Nikon has gone from being the number 2 manufacturer to slipping down to number 3, sometimes number 4 in some categories. And so they're kind of the new underdog because they have some great cameras, but they're still catching up on some things, so the reviews have some negative spots. I think they're really latching on to supporting Nikon because they're rooting for them to like keep going strong. I relate to that. I also would like Nikon to keep going strong and to pick up sales and to improve their technology.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to attack someone personally over that.
But so many brands don't seem to have ever had angry fanboys. Like, I can't think of an era when Canon fanboys were super mad at us, or Leica, or Hasselblad.
Canon has always been number 1.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to be angry about. No one, like, they're fine, they're solid.
Yeah, even if we show, like, their autofocus doesn't work well or something.
People don't care.
Yeah.
Or even if I say, like, don't buy a Canon, buy this, or buy third party, or do this. We really criticize Canon for not allowing third party lenses. No one cared. No one was angry at us.
Yeah, nobody got defensive about it. They're actually like, yeah, I've been a Canon shooter for 20 years and screw them. Why are they doing this to us?
Leica, even we've trashed Leica before, and their fans, they do have really passionate fans, but they're not mad. They're just like, you don't get it, man. Maybe you'll get it one day. And we did. They were chill about it.
No, I have an M10D that I love, and I still think the lenses aren't nearly as good as like a Sony or Canon lens.
Yeah, but I know Nikon people will be like, yeah, not as good technically, but I like how they look.
Yeah.
They know what they have, they're comfortable. Hasselblad, well, if you have a Hasselblad, you're just waving from your yacht at us idiots, and they don't care. We've criticized Hasselblad, and those people just don't care at all. Same with Phase 1. They're not like, why not Phase 1? They just don't care that we don't really review them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Leica, Hasselblad both like led their categories at some period of time, and then they lost massive amounts of market share. But I don't get the resentment that I get from Nikon.
Well, I think that those two brands are also more niche and specialty and expensive. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting that it's not all brand fans that become angry. But I actually dug into the psychology of that, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that'll be part 3, and then part 4 is us actually defending ourselves against the angry fanboys. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace. If you need a web presence, start at squarespace.com/Chelsea. So that could be your photography portfolio, it could be your video reel, a website for your business, your dental office, your chiropractic practice. Whatever it is, start at squarespace.com/Chelsea. Choose from their beautiful, beautiful templates that give you a jump start. Then you go in and you customize it. You make it perfect for you. Get a custom domain, custom email addresses, take appointments from clients, view detailed analytics, sell stuff on your store. Squarespace.com/Chelsea, and the coupon code Chelsea will get you 10% off if you decide to sign up after the free trial.
Okay, this is my time to empathize with the fanboys, which I don't know, you might not like that. You seem to be hyped up on raging. But
I can relate because I have been a fanboy. I have felt those feelings. It has never overtaken me to the point where I wrote an angry comment about it, but I have felt a little defensive when somebody criticized some product that I loved.
yeah, I feel like I
relate.
could get there. Like if I was really feeling my brand and someone gave it a negative review and then like half my family died that day and I had nothing to eat for lunch, I could be pushed to write one of those comments.
But you know, like we have a golden doodle and a poodle, and I've heard people say negative things about my beloved animals, and it does. It makes me feel like, what's wrong with them? Why are they attacking a poodle?
It's a doodle that they attack. No one says anything about the poodle.
No, they better not say it around you.
That's true.
Trouble.
That's why I'll be a fanboy with the poodle. Anyway, so I looked into this, and there's a lot of research on this because brands actually want you to feel this way. There's a lot of money put into marketing to figure out how to make people fanboys, basically. And one of them is identity and tribalism. And tribalism is basically you search for people like you, and then you push away people who are not like you. You want to bring in people who have something in common with you. So if you have latched on to a specific camera brand and you love your Nikon or your Canon and someone else hates it, then it's not just that you disagree on cameras, you're disagreeing as people. We see this with politics, of course. We see this with sports teams. We see this all over the place. We also see it with cameras. And another part of it is identity. And these companies, they specifically make brands a part of your identity. And a brand that does this really well is Mac. If you remember the old commercials, it was like the Mac versus PC commercials, where Justin Long played the cool young Mac and John Hodgman played the old nerdy boring PC.
Yeah,
And
that's the day I switched from Windows to Mac, actually.
it's really not. But they didn't even have to show two computers. They just showed two people. Do you want to be the cool young person or do you want to be the nerd? And they just latched on to the psychology of people wanting to identify with what they have. You look at a truck commercial, they don't just show the truck and say it has a cup holder and it has this. They show it like grinding down an old rustic road. Now it's like towing like 85 school buses. You know, it's macho, it's rugged. Yeah. People want to feel like the items they have. And so they identify with them personally.
I identify as a doodle dad. And if you attack that identity, I will become enraged.
I'm scared of who you could become with some doodle dad slander. And then the other thing is the sunken cost bias, and I really relate to this one. When you buy something expensive like a camera, you're doing research. You're watching the reviews. You're looking up what's in your budget. You're spending a lot of time and money committing to a whole system because you're not just buying a camera, right? You're buying the lenses and everything. So you have the sunken cost bias where once you've made that commitment and put in that time and money, you don't want to hear something telling you that you made a mistake. And now you recently bought a new watch, and I was told by you didn't watch the negative review you saw.
That's absolutely true. I did watch several YouTube videos about it after the fact, but not the one that said, why people hate Panerai.
Yeah.
I can't bring myself to do that. That could be too painful.
You just dropped a chunk of change and you didn't want to hurt your own feelings.
Yeah. Can I make a corollary that my source for this is Psych 301 class in 1992?
Okay,
So I don't know how up to date it is.
A little bit.
Cognitive dissonance is this psychological effect that can happen in your brain where if realizing something would be so emotionally painful for you that it would be difficult to handle, then your brain will actually shift how it perceives reality so that you don't have to acknowledge that flaw.
My camera doesn't autofocus poorly. Tony is dumb. I like that.
But it would be very painful. Many people have to save up for months or years in order to buy a camera. They're very expensive. And if you worked for years and set aside all your spare money in order to buy something, it would be very painful to realize that you might have made a mistake. You might have purchased something that wasn't the best. And therefore, you can save yourself a lot of bad feelings if you just shift your perception of reality a little bit. And imagine that you're a mind reader. Oh, Tony must be paid. It's not that my camera failed, it's I have the power of telepathy and I know Tony's thinking the wrong thing.
I think maybe cognitive dissonance is too difficult to overcome, so you could just like do a lesser cognitive dissonance. Like autofocus doesn't matter. I love taking still life pictures.
That actually, I see that specific example very frequently. They say real photographers don't even need autofocus.
That's fine. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely fine. And then the other thing that I found was that popular brands make people less defensive. So we just made a huge video saying negative things about the iPhone and nobody insulted us personally.
No, it had a 93% like ratio.
Yeah. Because
even all the Apple fanboys are like, yeah, screw Apple. What the hell are they doing? I didn't want another button.
It's like punching up, even though we're not trying to punch at all, but that's how it's perceived. Like,
yeah.
If a company's big enough and healthy enough and successful enough, no one cares when you're critical, but we just apply the same reasoning to all of our reviews. But I guess if you're the underdog, we have to be careful about that.
If you want to make your content to protect people's feelings, you need to be careful.
I mean, I do try to protect people's feelings, actually. I try to soften it. There have been times when something has been so bad and I'm just sitting there like, and you're telling me like, just say it's a piece of shit, like you said earlier. And I'm like, I can't. Like people worked on this. I have to be a little more diplomatic. How do I politely say this and take the teeth out of it? I really do try. It's just, you don't.
Well, no, you're right. We're different in that way. But I think most reviewers of anything are more like you. They tend to be more sensitive to the feelings of the fanboys. And if you aren't sensitive to them, then you will hear about it. And you really do lose subscribers. You can make lifelong enemies. I still have people mad about stuff I said about Micro Four Thirds like 8 years ago. I do feel sympathy for those feelings, but I remind myself that I am thinking of the guy who has not yet bought a camera, who's making a decision, who is working for months to save up the money to buy something. And I want that person to have all the information they need to make the best possible choice for them. So I don't so much care about the feelings of the engineers at the camera companies.
Oh my gosh,
I do. I feel bad for them, but my priority is that person who has not yet bought something, not the person who already bought a camera and wants their decision to be affirmed. For me, it's the undecided consumer that I'm trying to help. But I recognize that person's actually a small minority of the people watching the video. Most people already have it, or they're just curious.
People don't listen anyway. Remember that I think we gave a bad review of the Z6 and then a couple people bought it and then emailed us like, why'd you tell me to get this? And we were like, what? Okay, this segues great into part 4, defending ourselves. Tony, mind reading isn't real.
Every time you see a comment that is angry about the feelings or something internal that the reviewer is experiencing, like this reviewer is biased, this reviewer is angry, this reviewer has a grudge, immediately dismiss that because nobody reads minds. Telepathy is not a real thing.
I do think I have it. And I never failed. I'm always knowing what people are thinking, feeling. It's a curse. It's a blessing and a curse, really.
Yeah, it's a good thing we've never had an argument.
We don't have to. I already know what you're thinking and feeling, and I can anticipate that. And
every comment about us that insists that we're sold to some other camera manufacturer, that we're sponsored, but we've never accepted money or free gear from any camera or lens manufacturer. We did that to reduce bias.
We're really transparent about it. Like, this is sponsored by Squarespace. We say it 3 times. You guys say we say it too much. When we're sponsored, we say we're sponsored. We put it in there. It's in the description. We don't have to lie about that. But you know what was a painful one? We reviewed that beautiful Hasselblad camera, and they offered to give it to us for free, and we were like, ugh. and we had to send it back. We were like, $15,000 in gear, and we loved it, and we were like, we have to buy it.
I know. Well, I did. I loved it so much. I did end up.
We sent it back to them. We didn't take it for free, and then we ordered our own. So it looks like we are stupid. Congratulations, you were correct.
But I do all that, spend tens of thousands of dollars of my own money to avoid taking stuff for free. And then people still slander us. They libel us.
Listen,
it's so frustrating.
I want to hold your hand when I tell you this. There's no reward for doing the right thing. and no, listen, you have to come to terms with it. There's no reward at any point in this life or any maybe afterlife. The reward is in waking up in the morning and saying, I made the choice I wanted to make. So, sorry, it sucks. You should do the wrong thing.
Okay.
Criticized the Z6 and Z7 at the Bestest event. What's this slide about?
One of the most popular comments is that we're saying bad things about some Nikon camera, not because of the performance that we're actively demonstrating on the screen, but because they don't invite us to their events anymore. But if that were the case, you could test this scientifically. If that were the case, then our reviews, whether they were positive or negative, would correlate along with us being invited to events.
I just had a conspiracy. What if their technology doesn't work because we didn't go to the events?
Like, we're the ones showing up at the events makes the technology work?
Yes, somehow it functions when we're around.
So here's a little chronology. Like, when the Nikon D850 DSLR was released, Nikon invited us to a beautiful event, and we loved the camera. We both switched to the D850, and we declared it the greatest DSLR ever made.
I loved that camera.
It was such a positive review. Nikon asked if they could quote us in their advertising. We declined.
We declined because then people would have said we were sponsored by them.
Right, exactly. Then they launched the mirrorless Z6 and Z7, and they invited us to Florida for what I insist was still the best camera event we've ever been to.
Oh my gosh, we got to go behind the scenes at Disney, and like we got to kind of unethical cut the line and go on every ride first.
Yeah.
It was awesome. But
you know what wasn't? They brought us out into the swamps and those cool fan boats for wildlife photography, which was just amazing.
It was awesome.
All the food and drinks. Yeah, it was
and
great.
The people at Nikon were wonderful. Like, we got to talk to them.
They are so great.
They're just so lovely and kind and smart. We love them all. And the
guests.
But
you know what was not great?
The camera wasn't.
No, the Z6 and Z7 did terrible. They just did terrible, like basic stuff that we'd been doing for years, like just tracking the autofocus, somebody walking towards us, it couldn't do. It did not have auto white balance. You had to change the auto white balance between indoors and outdoors. Every time you went indoors to outdoors, you had to go in and change them.
It had its good points.
It did not have eye detect autofocus in a mirrorless camera. It did not have eye detect, which is way behind all the competitors. And they had 2 mirrorless lenses, a 50 f1.8 and a 35 f1.8. How are we supposed to give that a glowing review?
Because we were at the event. We should have been biased.
we criticized it, and we didn't recommend Sony or Canon. We just said, just stick with your Nikon DSLRs for now, and let's let them catch up in the mirrorless world.
But that wasn't a likable thing to say.
We have not been invited to another event, and in fact, they did not even respond to my emails or inquiries for several years. They did eventually start
We got put in timeout.
We were put in timeout, and we still are in timeout. But Nikon cameras kept improving, and so did the positivity of our reviews, culminating in 2023. Nikon won the Camera of the Year award twice for the Nikon Z9 with the firmware updates, and from the Z8.
From our personal award show at the end of the year, where we make up our favorites.
It's the only camera, it's the one that matters. And they also won the Lens of the Year award. And if we were sponsored by somebody else, do you think that would happen? If we hated Nikon, do you think we would give them the Camera of the Year award? I passed over the A9 Mark III to give the Z8 and Z9 the Camera of the Year award.
It's okay.
And some people actually said, oh, now Tony's trying to get back in their good graces so he can go to the events again. That's what they actually said. It makes me furious. And then later this year, we reviewed the ZF and the Z6 III, and they were not nearly as good as the Z8, and we said it. We tested them, and they didn't work as well, and they said it. And it turns out how positive or negative our reviews are correlates to the performance of the gear, not to whether we're invited to events or not.
Yeah.
And in fact, the only event we've been to in a couple of years now was the Sony A9 Mark III event, which they really hyped up, and that's the reason we went. At that Sony event, I said I preferred the way the Z8 was shooting the sports over the Sony A9 Mark III at the Sony event.
Well, that's pretty bold, but Sony keeps inviting us to stuff. We don't have control over that. We don't go to all the events. We were invited to...
We turned down 2 events in Japan this year.
Yeah.
And all expenses paid trips said, no, thank you.
Well, it's actually kind of difficult, so it depends. I think if you go with an outlet, it's like you're going to be at work anyway, so you can travel. But for us, going to an event can be really difficult because we have to make our videos, and an event can interrupt that. So it doesn't always work with our schedule, but we do still go to events sometimes. We just, it's not always something we want to do, and I don't think people understand that it's not always a good choice to go.
Just to address a few final things. When we do encounter problems in the course of a review, we don't just publish it. I follow up with the camera manufacturer.
That's true.
And you can see these long, very detailed emails that I'm sending to Nikon specifically.
And if you're wrong, they respond and give you a thorough response. And if you've discovered an actual flaw, they ignore you.
This is definitely, that definitely happens. If I don't get a response, I know what that means.
And never.
Most camera reviewers just grab a single camera and they'll say it's great. And almost every camera, if you don't compare it to something, works great.
Wait, but so can I try to convince you that we move to that format? And
our current format is to always compare it against the closest competitors.
Yes.
Because as I said, I'm thinking about the guy who hasn't yet bought a camera.
Yes, and this is why I believe that we should switch. First of all, if we don't compare it to anything else, we don't have to do any testing.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Which the testing is the difficult part. It takes a very long time, and it really holds up production. We got to do a lot. We've got to double test a lot of the time. The other thing is, if we find a mistake or something not working, then we have to write the reps. That just takes more time. Now our video is held up by days, depending on when a rep wants to get back to us, right?
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Then, let's say there is something not working and we report it. Everyone's mad. No one's happy about it.
So why would we do that if it makes everybody sad?
Exactly. This is what I propose we do. We get the camera, we compare it to nothing, we take a couple glossy pictures and put more time into our photo shoots, right? Make the photos look good. You could do it with any camera if we just get a model in hair and makeup or whatever, and then we just say we like it, and everybody's happy.
People often say, okay.
So is that a no? Okay.
I will consider it. I think that might be the right thing to do.
Listen, I'm getting
Ride
old.
that into retirement.
I'm getting old, and I'm ready to phone it in, Tony. No more tests, no more mean comments. Let's just ride into the sunset.
I don't know how many times somebody has said like, oh, you only got 60% of the Nikons in focus. I get 100% all the time. If I were to do a test where I got 100% in focus, then I would go back and push that camera harder.
Yeah, push it to failure, of course. Then how can you see?
You can't see any differences if no camera is pushed to failure at some point. It'd be like if you got a sports car and only tested it going to the grocery store. Like if you get a sports car and you need to take it to the track, push it until it fails.
You haven't seen how I drive to the grocery store.
Okay, fair enough. But also, we show up with receipts. If we say something doesn't work, it's on the screen. If we say the image quality is worse, we show a side-by-side image. We don't just throw things out there subjectively. Like, we are driven by this, like, tiring testing.
Which takes a lot of time and no one likes.
Okay. You're right. Let's just make videos for the fanboys.
Yes!
Well, you made such a smart choice already buying this camera. Good for you.
Yes!
You're the smartest little boy.
No, now you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Anyway, what do you think? Who do you think is the worst fanboy? Do you think we should just phone it in and start saying everything's good? Seems like a nice lifestyle to me. We could take free cameras. We could take whatever sponsor we want. We could go to an event and just be like, hello, I'm already going to say I love it. It'd be so easy.
Dear manufacturer, what should I say in my review? Could you just please hand me a press release and I'll read it? Then I can go home. Where are the martinis?
Now you get it.
Yeah.
This is the lifestyle I'd like. If you like this podcast for some reason, you could see more of them. We have a whole playlist on our YouTube where we have over 200 episodes of the Picture This Photography podcast. It's also available wherever podcasts are available. So look up Picture This Photography podcast. And of course, thank you to our actual sponsor, Squarespace. If you want your own website, store, portfolio, gallery, if you want to be able to schedule your clients or take down payments, you can do all of that on Squarespace. It's just professional, it's easy, it's beautiful. Go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off when you're ready. But of course, you can always enjoy the 14-day free trial.
I haven't learned to spell Chelsea yet. Could you help me with that?
Chelsea.
Oh, all right.
That's how you spell it.
I should learn that.
Like the bank, like the football team, you know.
Okay, the region in New York.
The region in London, I'm named after, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, see you next time.
Bye.